This is the week. I need that old Mike Rada helicopter. I need to be at 3 games at the same time on Friday night. Hey again, everybody. This is the Under the Lights podcast presented by SYNLawn of Alabama. I'm Kyle Parmley, joined by Gary Lloyd. Gary, please help. We need to be in 3 places at one time this upcoming Friday night.
I mean, we've known it's been coming for a while. I thought you were working on your cloning machine, but I guess you didn't quite get there.
Unfortunately, I have not yet. So I might have to resort to video streaming one game while I'm at another. But so all that to say, we've got 3 games this week that are going to decide region titles, all going on the same Friday night. It's going to be awesome. So before we dive into it, let me tell you a little bit about our friends at SYNLawn. They are the presenting sponsor of the Under the Lights podcast all season long. They've been a great partner for us. Great to have them along. Under the Lights is brought to you all season by SYNLawn Alabama. They are your go-to for all things artificial turf. Whether you're looking to upgrade your backyard, create a pet-friendly space, or enhance your golf game with a custom putting green maybe, SYNLawn has the solution for you. With top-notch installations for both residential and commercial use and wholesale turf sales, SYNLawn Alabama is the premier choice for artificial turf in the state. Call 205-590-9549. Or you can visit the showroom at 2018 Old Montgomery Highway, SYNLawn. Artificial grass never looked more natural. All right, Gary. So since we can't all be in 3 places at one time, you will just have to follow at Underlights365 on X on Friday night. We'll keep you posted on all these great games because we're going to talk about them here first. Let's see. What do we have? We've got Clay Chalville visiting Oxford. We've got Hoover visiting Thompson. And we've got Homewood hosting Parker. All 3 games, like we said, will decide the region titles. So you ready for this? It's going to be a fun week.
Yeah, mid-October, man. It's chilly now on Friday nights, and yeah, a lot on the line. This is the most exciting time of the high school football season for sure.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping we would get a little bit of some spread, like maybe have one of these games this past week, maybe one of them next week, but we'll have to settle for just enjoying all the action this Friday night. So before we break down all of those games and everything else we got going on in week 9, let's talk a little bit about week 8 because it had some good games of its own. Let's start with the Under the Lights game of the week. Spain Park 31, Chelsea 3. Biggest takeaway from this game, Spain Park is really, really good. They're one of the best teams in the state, not just Class 6A. We've talked about they've had 3 7A wins already this year, and they really looked apart. And I think the thing that was most impressive to me is you're used to the offensive numbers from this Spain Park team all year, but they scored 31 points, and their passing game was a complete non-factor. You know, Brock Bradley, Clemson commit, has had a tremendous season so far, and Chelsea entered this game and said, you're not beating us through the air. You're going to have to do something else, but you're not going to throw for 300 yards on us. And they shut down the passing game. So what does Spain Park do? We'll just run the ball all night, play great defense, and you still have no chance. So that was really impressive. I mean, Dakari Shanks goes over 130 yards on the ground. CJ Calley scored a touchdown. It was really impressive because Spain Park's top weapon, that passing attack, was neutralized, and they still dominated.
Your Under the Lights game of the week magic seems to have maybe run out
A little bit.
But what was the takeaway from Coach Cassidy at Chelsea afterward? I read a little bit about, you know, if you're just a casual box score looker and you see 31-3, you're going to say a complete domination. And, you know, credit to Spain Park's defense for sure, holding Chelsea really, really in check, holding Chase Strassner in check, 3 points. But did the game feel closer than that? That was kind of the vibe I got from following along Friday.
Yeah, it was certainly, after that football game, you did not feel like it was a 4-touchdown game. Now, granted, like going into the game, like nobody was surprised if they told you, hey, Spain Park is the better team in this matchup. You're not surprised by that. And Spain Park showed that they were the clearly superior team on Thursday night. But like you said, like that game didn't feel like a 4-touchdown blowout. Like Chelsea was competing in the game the entire time. They had some chances before the half where they could have gotten back in the game. Their first drive of the game took 9 minutes off the clock. I mean, they came into this game and were like, we're going to try to control the clock, limit possessions, and they largely did that for the first half. I mean, that first drive, they had to settle for a 20-yard Luke Miller field goal, but it took 9 minutes off the clock, and you're sitting at the end of a quarter, it's 7-3. But then, they could not sustain that momentum. They had a hard time getting the passing game on track. And like you mentioned, Chase Tracer, he's had such a great year to this point. Spain Park limited him to 73 rushing yards, and you could tell, like, every time he touched the ball, those blue jerseys were swarming him. They were not going to let Chase Tracer beat them. So, Spain Park held Chelsea to just over 200 yards of total offense. Just sitting here looking at the stats, and I thought Miller Bauman played well at quarterback. He completed 17 of 28, but Spain Park just didn't allow them to get anything. They didn't allow Chelsea to push the ball down the field very much. And, when you have to sustain drives over and over and over again, that's really hard to do. So kudos to Spain Park. But yeah, like you said, Chelsea, first loss of the year, they go to 6-1. And one of the things I do, take away from asking Coach Cassidy after the game, like, well, this is the first time your team's had one of these setbacks this year. Like, how do you think they'll respond? And he almost just like laughed. It's like, he didn't say this, but his insinuation was, do you know how many games we've lost the last few years? Like, we're going to be okay. He's not concerned about how his team is going to respond to a setback.
Yeah. You didn't by chance get a chance to ask him now that they did lose, if there's any change to that Sunday Chinese lunch, did you? Am I invited or no?
I think you should just crash it and see what happens. But so impressive win for Spain Park. And I wanted to let you hear a little bit from Coach Tim Vakakis after the win.
We just had to figure it out. We told the kids, we played 3 big games on the road, and we figured out ways to win in a driving rainstorm at James Clements against a top 10 7A school. We were down 14, figured out a way to win. At the Met, Hoover, we figured out a way to win. Another top 10 7A team, and going to Helena against a really good football team. It was raining, and figured out a way. So, tonight wasn't always pretty, but our kids, it means a lot to them. And when it means a lot to them, they're willing to kind of dig down deep when it gets tough. But again, our kids are used to doing hard things, and nobody panics, nobody flinches.
Well, that was a big game on Thursday. The game I was at on Friday, I'll be honest, I didn't quite expect it to be as dramatic as it was, but Briarwood pulls out a 21-17 win over John Carroll in a region game. I'll be honest, I just thought I was going out to see Briarwood continue to build on that momentum of the last couple weeks. We talked a ton about it. Start 0-5, get 2 top 10 wins. I just thought, hey, this momentum's going to keep rolling, and it didn't, because John Carroll, look, I saw John Carroll about a month ago, and the team I saw then and the team I saw this past Friday night, that wasn't the same football team. And that's a big credit to head coach Will Mara and that staff. Just, unbelievable job by them to continue to tinker with things, to make adjustments, to make progress. John Carroll was up 14-0 in the first quarter, and it took Briarwood a little while to wake up, and Briarwood woke up just in time. They really had to battle in the second half, and they put together a late drive in the fourth quarter to win the game. Briarwood ran a screen pass a couple times late in the second half that both of them worked. One of them went for a touchdown, and one of them on that last drive, Eli Thompson took one down to about the 4-yard line before they punched it in. So the Lions will take it. They get win number 3 in a row, but I give credit to both teams. I thought they both it was a really good ball game, because John Carroll, I think that was their best effort of the year, even in a defeat.
Yeah, sounds like a big dramatic battle of wills there, especially especially with the playoffs, like we pretty much, John Carroll seems like they're on the outs now, but for Briarwood to battle back in a game like that, where, like you said, it seemed like John Carroll was the better team for 3.5 quarters, something like that.
Yep.
For them to battle back and get a win in that fashion, big deal. And it seems like Briarwood's probably going to need a little bit of help here these last couple of weeks, but ultimately did what they needed to do. And just, again, kudos to John Carroll for continuing to improve and to fight. I think both of us have been impressed with Garrett Barnes in his first year at quarterback. Aubrey Walker, we've known what he's going to do. He's an incredible athlete, and I know he had a big night Friday. So things are, it's different from last year. They lost a lot off that team, but John Carroll still has a lot of guys who are doing a lot of big things and will continue to do a lot of big things.
Absolutely. Looking at the stat sheet, the yardage totals are within 9 of each other. There wasn't a whole lot of separation Luke Reynolds is really good. We still know that. He had 25 carries, scored twice. So here's a little bit from head coach Matthew Forster after the win.
I love the fact that our kids are willing to battle. I think hats off to Coach Moore and his staff. They had a great game plan tonight, gave us some fits with what they were doing offensively and then defensively. I mean, it's the first time I've ever gone against them, and I thought he did a heck of a job, and I think John Carroll should be really proud of their coach and their boys. And so for us, we had to make several adjustments, which you don't always see. So they did a great job, and we are now just figuring out a way to win. I mean, that's still the process. It's not easy. You're playing in the state of Alabama where high school football matters. Nobody's going to lay over and die, and so I'm proud of these kids for fighting back.
All right, we'll run down the rest of the scores from Week 8. Hewitt-Trussville beats Prattville 49-7. Hoover beats T County 56-6. Vestavia Hills 42-14 over Oak Mountain. All of that in Class 7A Region 3. And down in 6A, Clay Chalkville 66, Huffman 12, and Mountain Brook beats Pinson Valley 47-30 on Thursday night. Gary, I know you were there at that one. That score is a little bit surprising for most of us that have seen Mountain Brook so far this year.
It's not a little bit surprising. That was a lot of bit surprising. I was talking to several people at that game, and I'm like, did y'all expect this? Did you expect it? Like, I was thinking we'd have a nice little, I mean, no disrespect to Pinson Valley because they came out and played hard and they played well. But I was expecting like a 35-10, 31-10 type of game, and we go 47-30. And I'm sitting here looking, and I'm like, yo, I gotta get up for work in the morning. You score 77 points on a Thursday night, it makes your Friday morning difficult. It was a long game. And, I think the big thing for Mountain Brook is, yes, the offense, they score 47 points. One of those, they did get a pick six, but it was surprising. And again, this is not taking anything away from Pinson Valley because they competed, they played well, they took what the defense gave them, and they made a lot of big plays. But you felt almost like Mountain Brook, and Coach Yeager said as much after the game. It seemed like they were, this is my word, like they were sleepwalking into the game a little bit. And, that's kind of the main thing Coach Yeager talked with me about after the game was not having a casual approach to any game down the stretch.
We've got a young team just like they've got a young team. We've got to learn how to do things. A young team has to learn how to do things. And, you just don't approach the game of football with a casual approach, to get ready for the games. You can play other sports. You can play baseball and you can play basketball and other sports because you're playing 2 and 3 games a week. This one you've got one time. And the reason is because it takes so much to get over the last game physically and emotionally. And it comes around once a week and it takes 7 days to get ready for it. But you've got to be very intentional about getting ready for this game. I'm not sure how intentional we were. I think that we played really hard in some spots, but we didn't play 48 minutes of Mountain Brook football. I can say the last 3 weeks before this week, we played, Spartan football.
Good words from Coach Yeager there. And that is all that we had on Week 8. This podcast brought to you by SYNLawn Alabama all season long. All right, Gary, let's bring in our interview segment player this week. Let's take a listen. Time for our interview segment on this week's Under the Lights podcast presented by SYNLawn. This week, we are joined by Hoover quarterback Mac Beeson. Mac, thanks for joining us today. How's everything going with you?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me. It's great. Our season's going the way we kind of want it to go. We've had a couple losses, but regrouping from those has really helped us coming in with these big games, and definitely a big game this week.
How do you feel like you guys are playing right now?
I feel like offensively we're rolling. I mean, obviously all year the defense has been doing like really good. They're always on top of things, but we had a couple rough games as an offense, but we regrouped. And coming these last 2 weeks, we've put up a bunch of points, and I feel like Coach English has put us in a good position.
What does it look like when the offense is clicking on all cylinders like we've seen the last couple of weeks versus, when things aren't going so well?
Yeah, with like the defense, I feel like our first few games, the defense had kind of pulled out the game for us. And with having the defense component and the offense component, only one working one game, we've kind of came out of some games. But as you can see, like the last two games, when we're both firing off all cylinders and working as a team, like you can see how many what we can do to other teams.
You mentioned Coach English a minute ago, and obviously after everything this summer, what has he been like kind of guiding the ship this year, and what's your relationship like with him?
Oh, he came into a hard situation. I think he's handled it amazing. He's a great coach, and like you said, relationship wise, I mean, when everything happened, me and him, we sat down, we talked about like what we need to do, what we need to focus on, and he's big on focusing on what you can handle, and like you can only control what you can control. And I feel like as a head coach, he came in and he really has helped us as a team, kept us together, and really he gives us points every single week that we focus on to keep us better as a team.
Well, obviously, like you mentioned, difficult situations. Like your situation wasn't easy either. I mean, you're coming into a brand new school and whole group of new guys. So what does that process look like for a quarterback who's got a whole new locker room to learn and a group of receivers that you'd have no chemistry with, and you have to develop that right off the bat? What does that process look like?
Yeah, yes, sir. So I mean, it really went smoothly for me. I came in, met all the guys. They welcomed me very well. I met all the coaching staff. My first day here, there wasn't any like holding back. They showed me everything there needed to be showed, and I kind of just came in and I let the guys kind of like, not I wouldn't say mold, but like I let them get to know me and me get to know them, and we clicked very well. And I love my receivers. I think we have one of the best O-line in the state. I love those guys. Taking them to dinner tonight after practice, and yeah, I think it was very smoothly. It was a smooth transition.
You picking up the bill for their dinner tonight?
Yes, sir. I am. I got to treat them well.
Man, where are you taking them?
Frontera Grill. It's like a Mexican chain over here in Hoover.
Man, there used to be a Frontera over on my neck of the woods. Been there a few times. Yeah,
Yes, sir.
that's awesome.
Yeah, no, it is. So you mentioned the O-line. Now, tell me about this receiver core, because I think a lot of times when you look at a high school offense, like there's one dynamic playmaker that a team has to stop. And obviously, like you guys, like everybody knows Jonah Winston, and Jonah's had his big games. But even last week, like Hunter Purdue's our player of the week last week because of the game he had. And you've had several games this year where you throw 4 touchdowns and they're all to 4 different guys. So what's that like when you've got a group of guys that at any point, like you can trust these guys and you don't just rely on one guy to be able to carry that load out wide?
I mean, it's great. I mean, we have depth in every wide receiver position, slot and outside. We have D1 guys everywhere. So I mean, it really puts a bond to defenses, because you can't point out one man and say we're gonna double team them, because if you say you double team Jonah, we have 3 other people that can come make plays. And as you see, Jonah was out of game, and Hunter Purdue came in and what was it, 3 touchdowns?
Yeah.
Player of the week. Yeah, he had a heck of a game. But having those receivers and those depth, it really it opens up our playbook. It makes defenses back up, and that's when our running backs and our O-line come in the game. And we have we have depth at running back too. We have 4 running backs that can go get anything. So, and we really have depth everywhere, and all of them are capable to play at this level.
So first year at Hoover, so you haven't been a part of this game yet, but this Hoover Thompson game, have you paid attention to it over the years, and what do you think it's going to be like going into a hostile environment like that?
Yeah, I've definitely heard over the years. I mean, everybody in Alabama knows about it, and coming from 6A and into like a 7A, and knowing the rivalry between Hoover and Thompson, I wouldn't say like the players here and the coaches here understand it, and I'm understanding it more and more every day. But I mean, it's a big game. 2 of the best teams in the state going at it. I mean, it's not going to be a 50, like a 49-50 game winning in overtime. It's 2 really good defenses. So coming down to it, it's going to be a packed out game. The atmosphere is going to be great. We're just going to go out there and ball out.
So on that note, like what is the emphasis this week in practice? Like what are those things that you guys are focusing on that you're going to have to do well in order to win this game?
For sure. A very important point this week is the small details, like doing what we're supposed to do, execute every single play. Like the past couple of games offensively, we've had a good bit of penalties that have held us back. Like last game, we had a drive that we scored on 3 times, and we got called back every single time and ended up coming up with no points. So, the small details will really help us in this next game. Executing what we're supposed to execute and everybody doing their job is what will set us apart from this game.
So I've mentioned this before, but like I have, like, just historically, no read on the Thompson Hoover game going back almost a decade. We've seen 31-28, we've seen 24-21, we've seen 48-30, we've seen 52-14. Like, I know y'all have a plan, just like Thompson has a plan, but in a game like this, things happen, whatever it might be. You know, a big play happens for Thompson, and y'all have to respond. Like, when you know that in-game adversity is coming, like, how do you what's the mindset like? How do you adapt as a game goes on?
Yeah. So I mean, these big games, you know, something like that's going to happen, like you said. So you got to come in with the open head. Like, don't let anything take you. Say they go up by 14. Well, it's okay. We have 3 more quarters. Like, I try, I have full trust in my teammates that no matter what happens, no matter what adversity that we face, we can always bounce back to the next play, the next drive, and just do what we do. We have playmakers everywhere. And if somebody's not in the right headspace, we can get them on the sideline, get them right back in.
Well, I think it's a great point, Gary. I mean, you've even seen like earlier this year, you guys are in a shootout with Spain Park where it's like, all right, we respond, they respond, we've got to go back out and do it again. And then there are games where it's like the Hewitt Trustful game where it's like for 3.5 quarters, you guys can barely get a first down. And then, you know, you just hang in there and find a way to get it done at the end. So how much of that, you know, all the stuff you guys went through in the summer and in those tough games, like how much determination and toughness has this team developed over the journey?
Oh, for sure. I mean, as you see, like you said, the Hewitt game, I mean, we couldn't get anything going offensively. And part of that was my fault. And there's other components to go into that. And we kind of put Jonah in there. He drove us down the field and then fumble. Like, nothing was really going our way that night offensively. But as you can see, the defense, like, they held us in that game, held them 1 touchdown. And so we have a lot of trust in our defense. And I feel like the defense has a lot of trust in us. And the determination-wise, I mean, this team's fought every single game. First game of the season, we flew down to Miami. It was a very close game all the way to the end, and we came out with a W. And then coming back, like you said, Spain Park, we were fighting back and forth. We came out with a loss on that one, but I would say after that first game, we had a big head. And after that loss, we really, like, we locked in. And as a team, we, like, know that we have to do better. And so the games, like, after that, I feel like we really, like, we knew it was going to be a battle, but we knew, like, we were going to come out at the end because, like, we know what we can do on both sides of the ball.
Do you feel like, you know, people will talk about going up against that Thompson defense, you know, like the Fagans kid is so good. Hewitt Trustful has a really, really good defense this year. But is there something to it that, like, y'all obviously have a great defense and you have to go up against them in practice? So, like, I would imagine going up against your own defense in practice has you pretty ready come Friday night, regardless of opponent.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the way we run scout team, we go against our ones because, I mean, I think they're the best defense in the state. There might be a little bias, but they've shown that week in and week out. And so, yeah, we go against them in scout team. They give us a great look. And then we go against them in scout. You know, it's really like at practice, it's a team effort. You know, our scout team, we can put people in some places, but it's really ones-on-ones, helping each other out, knowing what we're supposed to be doing. The scout defense, learning their defense so they can show us, like, what they're going to do and stuff. And that really helps us throughout the week because we have a great defense. And no matter what defense we face, I feel like we can come in ready.
Awesome. You ready for Friday?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, this is my first game again in the Hoover Thompson rivalry. And I beat him in 7, or we beat him in 7-on-7. So that was kind of my first taste of, like, people were standing around everywhere. Like, the atmosphere is just crazy when it comes to Hoover versus Thompson in Alabama.
You like a game on the road or a game at home better?
That could either go both ways. You know, I love going into somebody else's stadium and coming out with a W, but I also love playing at home because we have great fans. We have great atmosphere. Our student section's amazing. You know, it's just a great atmosphere when we're playing at the Met when the lights turn on.
All right. Well, Thompson High School in Alabaster on Friday night. That's where the Hoover Bucks will be playing. Region title on the line. It's going to be a lot of fun. Mac, thanks for joining us for a little bit, and we'll see you out there on Friday.
Sir, thank you for having me.
Great catching up with Mac. They've got a big game this week that we will be talking about a little bit later on. All right, Gary, well, if you follow Under the Lights on X, you got to vote in our Player of the Week poll. And I'll tell you, this one was a little bit closer than it normally is. It was not a runaway by any stretch. So we had 4 candidates. Let's start with Hewitt Trustful quarterback Noah Dobbins. 4 total touchdowns. You said he did that all in the first half. So
All in the first half. Didn't take a single snap in the second half. So this was a close vote, but if he would have played that second half, it might have been a runaway.
yep. And then Vestavia Hills, I wouldn't even call him running back. I call him halfback. You know, the old NCAA video games used to always have the halfback, and you're like, what is that? But Bruce Littleton from Vestavia, man, he had a great Friday night. He's a bruiser, 15 carries, 121 yards, a couple of touchdowns. Great night for him. Mountain Brook running back Stuart Andrews doing normal Stuart Andrews things. 33 carries, 196 yards, and 4 touchdowns in that win over Pinson. And Spain Park running back Dakari Shanks, 19 carries, 134 yards. All right. So, like I said, the drum roll player of the week is Noah Dobbins from Hewitt-Trussville. So, like I said, Noah Dobbins, I think, had 39% of the vote last I looked, and Stuart Andrews was right there with him, 33, 34, something like that. But kudos to Noah Dobbins, first Hewitt-Trussville player of the week winner. That we got the Husky Fast votes this week. I was wondering if we reached out there.
Yeah, no, he certainly earned it. I mean, Hewitt-Trussville, I know we didn't really dive into that one because it's hard to dive into a 49-7 game, but I mean, you know, throws 3 touchdowns, rushes for another in the first half, and Hewitt-Trussville scored touchdowns on 6 of its 7 drives in the first half. So they just completely dominated, and he was obviously a key part of that.
Not bad. So if you have a nominee for player of the week, think somebody ought to have it, or you just want to vote, this is where you need to follow Underlights365 on X on Friday nights. Early Saturday morning, we get the poll out, or the poll out. It's in the newsletter that you can sign up for as well. Get all the coverage into your inbox first thing Saturday morning. While Gary might be awake, but I'm usually not yet. So, all right, SYNLawn Alabama, a great partner all season long. Let's dive into Week 9 games. Our friends, I had a good conversation with our friends over at Alabama 7A football, Jeff Allison. I said, look, man, just call it Week 9. Just join the Rebels over here. And he said, nope, we're starting at Week 0. It's like, come on, man.
We gotta get Jeff right.
But we have got, so like we referenced earlier in the podcast, we've got some great games this week. We'll start with the game of the week. I'm going to be out at Warrior Stadium on Friday night. The Hoover Bucks visiting Thompson. This game will decide the Class 7A Region 3 title regardless of what happens next week, because both of these teams are undefeated in the region. And here we go again. I mean, we've been here before. It kind of seems like even as much as things change over the last few years, they're still the same, man. This game is let's see, I'd written it down. The winner of this game has won the region every year since 2016. You know, Spain Park won it in 2015 when they went on their magical run. But 2016 on, one of these two teams, the winner of this game, has won the region every single year. But I'd be interested to see what you think, because I haven't seen both of these teams play. I don't think these offenses, this is not going to be a 35-34 type of game. I mean, I think the defense is going to be the star of this game. And whichever team makes the fewest mistakes or makes that big play on defense or special teams has the edge.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with you, but like, you know, you talk about kind of that consistency. That's the word I'll use, of whoever wins this game, you know, since 2016 has won the region. But I'm looking at how those games unfolded when they've played in the regular season, when they've played in the semifinals and all that. And these games have been crazy. Like, you'll have let me look at some of these scores I've written down. You'll have a 24-21 game. We've seen 31-28. We've seen 48-30. We've seen 52-14. We've seen upsets. I don't know. I have no idea. I'm kind of with you that I would lean more as this one being more of a defensive struggle. But the minute I say that, we will get 35-34. So, like, you know, Hoover's defense, really good. Thompson's defense, really good. I think for me, you know, not being a football coach or anything, I would just look for Hoover to have a chance, because obviously I lean Thompson, just them being at home, but I think you've got to match Thompson's physicality and really be able to run the ball. And this is the most obvious statement of all time, just be able to take care of the ball. You know, there have been times where, you know, last week, for instance, Hoover wins 56-6. There's nothing to complain about when you win a game by 50 points. But Mac Beeson does throw 2 interceptions. You know, you can overcome that against Tuscaloosa County. Can you overcome a couple of turnovers at Thompson? I don't know. So I think you're right that it's going to be just a hard fought, really dominantly defensive kind of game, but you've got to take care of the football. That's what I would want to watch the most if I was standing on those crowded sidelines in Alabaster.
Yeah, I don't know that, because I think back a lot to that Hewitt Trustful Thompson game that I saw, that 15-10, and it just I don't see that. I see this game kind of unfolding similarly. Like, there's going to be a couple of big plays, there's going to be some missed opportunities, and with the stakes as high as they are, I mean, I just don't, and I don't know whether. I think one thing you mentioned, Hoover's success last week. One thing that I've really noticed about Hoover, especially offensively, is it seems to be like it's been like an all or nothing type of deal. Like, it's a great thing that when you score 8 touchdowns, like 6 different guys score. That's awesome. I mean, the amount of variety that you can have on offense, so opposing teams can't stop one guy, is great. But then you have games where they can't move the ball at all. And so I don't know if, I mean, I want to see which Hoover offense shows up, because that defense has showed up every single game this year.
Yeah.
And, you know, Thompson's defense, while maybe not as dominant as it has been in the last few years, they're still really, really good. And that offense may not have the playmakers that it's had on the outside the last few years, but Trent Seaborn, still really, really good. And all it takes is one pass down the sideline to somebody like Anquan Fagans, and boom, you have a touchdown. So I don't know which way I lean in this one, because I just don't think it's going to – I think it's going to come down to somebody pops a big play on either side of the ball, and that becomes the difference.
Let's have some fun with it then. Kind of off the cuff here. I've got my guy in mind. If there's a guy, if it is a close defensive game like this, and it comes down to, you know, some guy making a big play, doesn't matter, offense, defense, special teams. Who's your guy that you think makes that big play?
I think it's Anquan Fagans on either side of the ball. I mean,
Okay.
I don't know why anybody still throws to that's the side of the field that he's on. I have no idea why, because that guy is a really good football player.
Okay.
But who's your guy?
I'll go on the Hoover. Since you picked a Thompson guy, I'll go on the Hoover side, and I'll say JJ Moultrie.
He made so many key interceptions last year for that team.
Yeah. Well, and it, like I said, it could be special teams too. I mean, we've seen him do it all the last couple of years. So I think he could be a guy that could be a real difference maker.
Love it. All right, that's one of them. One of those region title games. Another one, Clay Chalkville visiting Oxford, a battle of 7-0 teams, top 5 matchup in Class 6A. One that we kind of had circled for a while now. This one will decide the Region 6 title. They both been in a couple close games this year. They both shown that they got what it takes to win those close games. And if we get another one, it's gonna be a great one to see who comes out on top.
Yeah, I love these kind of games. This just best on best kind of thing. I mean, I know Clay Chalkville is maybe a little more balanced offensively than Oxford. Oxford's gonna, you know, they can throw it around. You saw them against Mountain Brook, so you can speak a little more to them. But my expectation would be, again, a non-football coach here, so don't get mad at me if I'm completely wrong, because most of the time I am. But I would expect Clay Chalkville. I would expect a heavy dose of Aaron Osley and Joshua Woods running the ball and try to keep that Oxford offense over on the sideline. And, you know, those guys they keep the chains moving. They have big playability, and let your defense really work, because that Clay Chalkville defense is elite. They're really fast. They just made a lot of plays this year. But anytime you go on the road an hour away to a tough place to play against a team that's been here, right? This Oxford team, this isn't a team that's just got its eyes on let's win the region championship. They're experienced enough. They've been here. They've got their eyes on that blue map, and so they're not going to be deer in the headlights at all, especially at home. So can you get to Mason Mims, force him into some tough throws? Can you defend those guys on the outside? And I just have no idea what to expect with this one either in terms of what type of game might we expect. Just really looking forward to seeing how it turns out.
I think if Oxford wants to win this game, they need to get the score up a little bit. I like you said, I saw Oxford against Mountain Brook, and I'm looking at the numbers right now. I mean, both offenses played really well in that game, and Oxford came back from a 2-touchdown deficit in the fourth quarter and won it with 21 seconds to go on a 2-point conversion after a touchdown. So you mentioned Mason Mims. He had 350 passing yards in that game. I mean, he and Nick Richardson they were dialed in. That was a great connection. They scored the 3 touchdowns, and I think Richardson had the 2-point conversion play too. So that connection's great. And but I think, based on what I saw, Clay Chaltwell's offense is going to be able to move the ball as well. So credit Oxford for you. Say what?
No. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I was really impressed that night with not so much Oxford's X's and O's, whatever, but their resolve.
Mm-hmm.
Like when they got down in the fourth quarter, I mean, there was no panic. They just did their thing. And when they got down and scored late, went for 2, like it was no big deal, got it. I mean, there was never any quit in that team either.
Yeah, never any quit. There's a lot of resolve. And I think a lot of that resolve comes from that experience that I talked about. This is just a very, very experienced team. They've been there. They've been doing this for several years, and both teams are going to do what they're good at. But I am curious to see, head coach Stuart Floyd, who's he's calling the plays. He's pretty much your offensive coordinator in the head coach's role, and Shay Monroe, the offensive coordinator on the Oxford side. Both of these guys really good play callers. And I'd be curious to see if we maybe see some stuff from both teams that maybe we haven't seen yet, knowing we were going to arrive here most likely, and here we are, both teams 7-0 with the region on the line.
All right, the third game that's going to define a region, Homewood hosting Parker. And while on paper Parker is the clear favorite in this ball game, this is still a matchup of teams that I assume will be in the top 10 this upcoming week, with Homewood they've been flirting that fringe top 10 all year long. This Parker team, though, is, in a word, elite. So Homewood's got its work cut out for them, but the Patriots have shown that they're a really good team this year. Their only loss is a close one to Mountain Brook a couple weeks ago. And good news, Will Myers is healthy, good to go at quarterback. So Homewood's got they've got everything that they want. So they're going to have to go out there and see what they got. They'll have the home crowd too.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say is, these first 2 region on the line games for the teams that we cover, they're both on the road going to hostile environments, and Homewood gets that home field advantage. And I'm wondering, Homewood's band has always been a staple, and especially this year with the gyroscope, Jack Mitchell drummer, which has been insane to watch. But I want to know how loud that band is going to play this Friday night. I think those drums are going to get hit a little harder. I think those saxophones are going to get blown into a little harder. And I think that atmosphere is just going to be crazy, and it's going to need to be. I think that Homewood defense that's been good, I think they're going to have to create some turnovers and maybe create some short fields for Will Myers and the rest of that offense that's been pretty prolific. I don't know. I just don't see this. I don't see this game, to me, being relatively low scoring. I think we might see some points in this one, and I can't really figure out why. It's just kind of, I don't know. I think this game has a lot of playmakers and a lot of opportunity. But I do think Homewood's going to have to play just the best defensive game they've played yet, and create at least a couple turnovers. What do you think?
Well, if defensive coordinator Freddie Lawrence had a thing on his play sheet that said, "Hey, turnover," I'm sure he would pick that one every time.
Yeah, he'd be pushing that button, turnover here, turnover here.
It's going to be a tall task for Homewood. I almost view this similarly to the way that we've seen Mountain Brook play against Clay and Oxford, that even in 2 losses, Mountain Brook it comes away from those games going, hey, we knew we lost those games. We wanted to win them, obviously, but that showed us we can compete. And I think Homewood wants that. They want to leave this game with that, knowing that, hey, that's one of the best teams in the state, and we hung with them. And we'll see how the dust settles, because you'll have opportunities down the road, and Homewood can still, even if they don't win this game, that they can still get that 2 seed and host a first round game. So those are the 3 games that are going to decide region titles on Friday night. Even though we got a couple weeks left in the year, these games will decide region titles. So, all right, having talked about all of those, let's run through the rest of what we got real quick, Gary. Let's start with a couple of 7A Region 3 games. Oak Mountain going to Hewitt-Trussville. Hewitt-Trussville is they're still in the driver's seat to get that 3 seed, but they'll need another win here against an Oak Mountain team that is no pushover. I mean, shoot, they hung with Vestavia for a half on last Friday, and then you'll have Vestavia Hills hosting Tuscaloosa County. I think the Rebels roll here pretty easily.
Yeah, I'm with you on Vestavia. Just a tough first year for Miles Holcomb coming in at Tuscaloosa County. Winless so far, and I think Vestavia, even though they've been banged up, they just seems like every week we have a new running back to nominate for the Under the Lights Player of the Week. So I don't expect that to be any different this week. And then, Hewitt-Trussville and Oak Mountain, that's an interesting one, because if you're not on your toes, Oak Mountain can bite you. They've proven this year that they're obviously a lot better. Coach Robert Evans said that after their game against Oak Mountain, that they're probably the most improved team in the region, really. And I look for this Hewitt-Trussville defense to really have a big night, trying to slow down Will Odell, Marty Myrick, Zach Fitzgerald, and that group, because maybe we don't talk about them enough, but that Hewitt-Trussville defense is allowing just a shade under 11 points per game, and no team has scored more than 16 on them all year. And when you think about it, this late in the year, 8 games in, and no team has scored more than 16 points, that's elite in its own right. So just shout out to that defense, because they've been playing really well. They're really, really fast, and I think that speed will probably give Oak Mountain some problems.
Yeah, good call on the defense there. All right, we've got one Thursday game this week. Mountain Brook paying a visit to Huffman. Look, I give Huffman a lot of credit. They are so much better than they were last year when they didn't score a point all season. They've won a game. They've only been shut out once this year. So kudos to Huffman for really continuing to improve. But the Spartans, they'll roll on Thursday night.
Yeah, this is just one of those, like Coach Yeager said earlier, you've got to focus on the fundamentals. You have to approach every game like it's a big game, no casual approach, and really focus on yourself and your job and what you're doing, and don't focus on, just have that faceless opponent. I think that's becoming maybe the next cliche in football, is calling somebody a faceless opponent, but I think there's truth in it, that you've got to focus on your job, and at the end of the night, you'll be where you want to be.
All right, a couple of other 6A games. Chelsea at 6-1 is hosting Helena. This is all of a sudden, after last week's result, turned into a really big game for Chelsea, having to face a Helena team that is still very much in the hunt for that 2 seed in that region.
Yeah, both of these teams are 3-1 in the region. I haven't looked at all the scenarios, but does this pretty much become potentially the game for the 2 seed at this point?
Yeah.
Good thing you get it at home. Helena has the ability to score points. We know Chelsea does too. So I think you've got to get back on track, pretty quick, running the ball and doing what you've done all year. Like there's no fret over there. It was one game against, like you said earlier, against Spain Park, one of the best teams in any classification in Alabama. So that community will have to really rally around those guys and have a big atmosphere Friday night, because that seems like it could have the potential to be a sneaky good game. Really good game. But if Chelsea does what they've done all year, it's crazy to say that after what they went through the last couple of years and how Helena's been. But you kind of expect, like, okay, Chelsea will bounce back, take care of business. So that turnaround's been crazy, and hopefully that's just a really good game because there's a lot on the line there too.
Also in that region, Spain Park hosting Calera. The Jags looking to avoid a letdown after last week's big win. And if they win this game, they will wrap up a region title.
Yeah, I mean, and they will. I mean, Calera has shown flashes. You know, they're 2-2 in the region, 3-4 overall. They're improved. So they have the ability to score some points, but that Spain Park defense is a different animal. And I mean, if you look at Calera's defense, that I think they're allowing something like 37 points per game. So I expect Spain Park to pretty much on offense do whatever they want to do and wrap up that region title.
All right, and as we roll along here on the Under the Lights podcast presented by SYNLawn, we've got one last game, and this is going to be a great bridge into our final topic today because John Carroll at 2-6 is hosting Corner at 6-1. These teams are both in Class 5A Region 5, and I would love if Briarwood made this big deal to like everybody get out to Pat Sullivan Field on Friday night, root for the Cavs, because Briarwood, this is a result that Briarwood has to have if they want to have a chance of getting into the playoffs. Briarwood's off this week. John Carroll's hosting Corner. John Carroll has to beat Corner for Briarwood to stay alive in the playoff race. And based on what I saw last week, this is not the craziest thing you would have ever heard of. And look, maybe Briarwood could take the band out there. Maybe they could join forces, have a big time. I mean, look, Briarwood, you know they're going to have some representation at that game just because it matters so much to their season and playoff fate. But Corner's had a really good year. They are battling a few injuries, and John Carroll was playing their best ball of the year. So I don't know. I've seen crazier things.
Yeah, I mean, you know, again, this is one of those that you look at. You look at John Carroll 2-6, 1-4 in region. You look at Corner 6-1, 3-1 in region, and you're like, okay, Corner's going to roll. But like you said, there's more to it than meets the eye, and I think this is a really good game. That, you know, it's a big deal for three teams, and well, really that whole region, but especially three teams. You know, John Carroll wants to end this thing the right way and keep playing well, because while they aren't going to make the playoffs, they've been playing pretty well at times, and they've shown that ability. And Corner obviously has had a great year, but yeah, I think the private schools might unite this week, and you might see a big contingent of blue in those green bleachers.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool to see. So that's all that we've got going on here in week 9. Big thanks to SYNLawn for presenting the podcast all season long. All right, Gary, time for the goal line stand. We last week talked about region standings. So this week, let's dive a little bit, maybe not get too in the nitty gritty because there's still a lot of football to be played, but let's look at some potential playoff scenarios, if you will, since we kind of are starting to get an idea of who's going to be in what slots in these regions. Always easy to start in Class 7A Region 3. If you haven't heard, the playoff matchups in 7A have switched this year. You know, Region 3 is so used to playing the Huntsville Region 4, and, you know, you get the same old so-and-so goes to James Clemens, so-and-so plays Bob Jones at home, Sparkman. You get the same things every year. Not so this year. Region 3 is playing Region 1, which is a Mobile-based region. So a little bit of a unique twist. If you want to look at Region 1 right now, you've got Mary Montgomery and Baker are the two. They've been the two best so far. And Fairhope and Daphne are in that 3-4 slot as it stands right now. MGM has never been good until last year, and they've kind of kept that momentum going. They're having another really good year. Baker, led by a familiar face in Juan Johnson, former Hewitt-Trussville offensive coordinator. And then Fairhope and Daphne have been perennial, you know, first-round type playoff teams. So if they end up 3-4, they'll be coming up this way. So what we'll have likely is Thompson and Hoover, likely, this is not set in stone, but likely hosting first-round playoff games. And then Hewitt-Trustful and Vestavia probably going down south to play somebody like MGM and Baker. Do we get a Hewitt-Trustful Baker matchup?
Well, I think for that to happen, looking at this, Mary Montgomery is at Baker this week.
Yeah.
And Mary Montgomery will have to win that game, come out on top in the region, knock Baker to the 2. And then if Hewitt-Trustful holds on to the 3, they would travel to Baker, correct?
Yeah, and also on the Region 3 side of things, there is some wild, like, you can still end up with a 3-way tie for second. And I don't know that anybody wants that, but that could still happen.
I know the scenarios are out there. I don't pretend to know I haven't seen the spreadsheets yet. It's still early, but and some things have to happen, but count me as one who's kind of rooting for the Hewitt-Trustful at Baker game. I think there are some Hewitt-Trustful people probably going, no, we don't want to do that. But hey, we're into storylines and fun stories and stuff, and seeing Hewitt-Trustful play their former offensive coordinator Juan Johnson in his new home would be pretty cool. And if you're involved with either of those programs, you would hate it at the end of the night that one of you put out the other, but it would be cool to see them kind of reunite and play a game. But yeah, there's, like you said, a lot to be determined, but it's the picture is becoming clearer.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's look at a couple of 6A regions. Region 3 will play Region 1 in 6A as well. 6A Region 3 has Spain Park and Chelsea, 2 teams that we've talked a lot about. So here's the deal. You want to be one of the top 2 teams to get a home game. Spain Park is going to be one of those. They're likely going to be hosting. And Chelsea and Helena, that game matters a lot because the last thing that you're going to want to do is go down south and play at like St. Paul's or Spanish Fort or something like that, because Saraland's top dog in that region. They're best of the best. St. Paul's and Spanish Fort are both having spectacular years down there and are going to be a tough out for whichever Region 3 team has to play them. So if you're Chelsea, you really want to win this week because you want to host probably Spanish Fort, and that's not going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination, but you certainly don't want to have to go all the way down there and play the 2nd seed.
Yeah, have now, because we're up here in Birmingham, have Spanish Fort and St. Paul's already played?
I don't think so off the top of my head.
Because right now Spanish Fort's 5-1 in region, St. Paul's 4-1 in region. Obviously, Saraland's undefeated.
St. Paul's gave Saraland a really competitive game last week.
Yeah, let me see. I'm just going to see if Spanish Fort and St. Paul's have played. No, they play on. Wow, they play on November 1st. A region game on the last week of the season. Spanish Fort at St. Paul's. So, yeah, we maybe some stuff to be determined there out of 6A Region 1. But yeah, like you said, for the teams we cover, Spain Park's in the driver's seat to host. But yeah, if you're Chelsea or Helena, you're going to be fighting, scratching, clawing to get this win this week because you want that first round playoff game for sure.
In 6A Region 5, that concerns Homewood for us. They'll play Region 7. So you're looking at Homewood is probably going to play somebody like Athens or Jasper at home in the first round of the playoffs, which is by no means a gimme. But if you're Homewood, that's about as good as you can ask for in the first round of the playoffs. I was very impressed looking at Jasper makes the jump up to 6A, and I saw Jasper play last year, and they were awful. Yes. And for them to be having the year that they're having, turn around under David Reeves, head coach, must be doing a great job because they're firmly in that playoff hunt. But Homewood, if they take care of business as best they can the next couple of weeks, they'll have a home playoff game against one of them.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm looking at this is this it says last week Jasper defeated Muscle Shoals 49-48. Would have loved to have been at that. My gosh.
North Alabama's had some crazy scores this year. Like Hartsville's played some big overtime games. Like there's been all kinds of stuff going on up there.
Man, drama up in Region 7. And then Hartsville just defeated Athens 21-19. There's a lot of stuff happening in that Region 7. And just like we said before, Homewood seems like they'll get a home playoff game, and you just want to finish strong just to confirm that you do.
And then finally, 6A Region 6 plays Region 8. 6A Region 6 has like Clay Chalkville, Mountain Brook, Oxford, who, Clay plays this week. I'm going to go ahead and predict that Region 6, their 4 playoff teams will sweep Region 8 because, right now you've got Fort Payne, Gadsden City, Southside, and then like May Jemison and Buckhorn play this week for probably that 4 spot. I give Clay, Oxford, Mountain Brook a heavy edge in any of these games, and then we'll see for the 4 playing the 1 over there. But it looks pretty good for at least Clay Chalkville and Mountain Brook first round.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And then I looking at Region 8 right now, yeah, like Mountain Brook's going to go. Yeah, Mountain Brook's going to go on the road. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where they go. And I'm looking at this Southside Gadsden at Gadsden City this week. Big game for region. They're both 3-1 in the region. So they're looking, to solidify a 2 seed, whoever wins that game. Fort Payne probably has the region. They're 4-0 right now. But that Gadsden City Southside, those communities are separated by nothing, and I don't think they've played. I can't remember for sure. I've talked to Miles Holcomb in the past about it. Talked to Southside coach Ben Stewart about it too. So that game is an incredible game for Region 8. It has obviously implications for our Region 6 teams based on who they play, but that's an intertown rivalry that is going to get its first game, and it's likely going to determine some really important playoff seeding. So that'll be a fun one out of our area to keep an eye on as we kind of, like I said before, as this playoff picture becomes clear as to who hosts who and who goes where.
Absolutely. So that's an early look at what you can expect in the first round of the playoffs. Big thanks to our friends at SYNLawn for bringing you the podcast all season long. Going to be a big week. Go find your way to a high school stadium on Friday night. Big games all around. Somebody find me a helicopter so that I can do the 3 for there. But otherwise, Gary, have a good one. We want to thank all of you guys for following along all season. Follow us at Underlights365 on X, at Underthelights365 everywhere else. All right. Big week. We'll talk to you about it next week.